Welcome to the Independent Producers Organization program. This is the program that showcases independent producers, their productions, and provides a forum for discussing issues which affect independent television producers here in the Pacific Northwest.
Okay. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the Independent Producers Organization live showcase. And today we're going to start out going politics.
Yes.
And with me, I have my co-host. How convenient. Bruce Broussard, candidate for Multnomah County Commissioner, and he said to make sure that others are welcome to come in and be.
Yes, we're very interested in interviewing everybody. We just kind of like maybe starting it off to get this out of the way.
Okay.
But the whole idea is that we want to interview every candidate that's running for position 2 for Multnomah County, and in fact, we're interested in interviewing anybody running for office.
Well, is there
maybe city council or whatever, right?
how many commissioner openings are there now?
There's only one commissioner's seat open, but there's the chair. The chair's seat is also available.
Oh.
The chair of Multnomah County is also she's an incumbent, Deborah Kafori, and she's running for office too. But that seat is also available.
She wants her seat back.
Right.
Probably.
So
okay.
So the chair position of Multnomah County, and also the chair for term limited, Loretta Smith.
Okay.
She's term limited out because that's her fourth year. That's her second term, and it's my understanding she's running. In fact, she's already filed to run for a city council for Dan Salzman's seat. That's that crowded.
Everybody wants that.
That particular seat. That's going to be interesting. But we're interested we're inviting them all to come on the show.
Sure.
First come, first serve.
Okay.
Right. And so you can call Richard or you can call myself, whatever. But you can give us a call, and we'll be making sure that you can get the time, right?
That's right. Or come here.
That's right. That's right. They can come right here and interview, and you get more than 3 minutes, right?
One way people can get to me is called Comcast.
Comcast, okay.
Information.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Comcast information.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
It's
and Richard Carpenter.
okay. Right. I think you get everything by that.
Yeah, right.
I had trouble trying to get my name and address, phone number into the phone book.
Okay.
But then Comcast isn't a phone book. They're a source of information. They're just their own thing.
Okay.
And do their own thing. So yeah.
They can give me a call. They can give me a call. And,
okay.
And they've got my number 503-701-0457, or if not that, they can check out Oregon Voters Digest or whatever. But my point is that you can give us a call. We want to definitely interview all of the candidates that are running for office.
Okay.
We've invited the gubernatorial candidates. We've had some. I've had some on my show, Oregon Voters Digest. But we're willing to do that here for the producers show too, right?
Okay.
Anybody and everybody. So just get in touch with us. Let's put it that way.
Right.
And Richard is just so happening. He's interviewing me because I am running for county commissioner seat number 2, and the whole idea of this. So there's going to be an interview. So I'm being interviewed. I'm going to sit back and let him interview me about this seat.
Is this deal where if there's a need for a runoff because somebody doesn't have more than half or something?
Right, 51%.
Okay, so that's true with both city and county.
No, that's right. That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
People, not everybody knows that.
And these are non-partisan seats too, by the way.
That's right.
Both of them are non-partisan seats.
So
that's kind of like what we are right now.
You could be whatever, and it just doesn't matter.
That's right.
Because
you're party, whatever.
You're just a person going into a.
That's right. It's a non-partisan race aspect of it, and for both of the seats, for that matter, both the city and the county. That's something that needs to be known. You know what I mean?
That's right.
So
I just mentioned that we were down at the city today, and it was let's just say it was a great show. I mean, there's a city council, there's speakers from right here, Portland Community Media, talking about the benefits and some of the people that have had successful things happen to them as a result of being involved in cable access. And it was so here our executive director, Justin,
Right.
he talked, great thing, and then the mayor
Right.
read this thing. I thought it really was excellent. Really was excellent.
Wow. Wow.
And then they had us all up there for a picture.
Awesome. Awesome.
So it's really,
Well, maybe we might be able to get a copy of that, Corey. Maybe if he once he gets, he's working so hard that proclamation that Emily has. Emily has that. She said she was going to let us see it. So maybe.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, doing our interviewing me, we got enough time that we can maybe show that proclamation. It's
Okay,
good that
well,
you're bringing this up because you're right. I mean, this is an asset, for the community. Across
That's
the board.
right.
And
Absolutely.
we need to really appreciate that. And as you say, we got some accolades, all being invited to the city council, and they recognized it, and it was really great.
And they have all these pamphlets down here that different categories of whatever you want to take, and a lot of them are for young people.
Right.
So I have to say that they're emphasizing that. That's great. That's
good.
great.
That's good.
So-
Well, it's community television.
That's right.
It's
That's
community.
right.
It's a one of a kind.
But
community television.
not every day does a city just
Oh, yeah.
laud
Well,
us in that
Well,
way.
we're on every day.
Okay.
Yeah, see, community television is on every day.
All right.
I mean, preferably channel 11, I think 23, 24. Those are the regular kind of channel aspect of it. But you can catch it on Comcast.
Right.
You have to get it on Comcast aspect of it. But hey, it's a beautiful situation that we have here, and you've been here for a number of years. I've been here for a number of years.
Right.
And it's being benefited. I've interviewed a number of folks in the whole 9 yards. You have too. We've done things together, and we've had some very interesting guests, if you will, to educate the public, about what is going on. And you get it nowhere. You can't get it on commercial television.
They emphasized that today also.
Yes, there was no. This is not commercial television. This is community television.
That's right.
And making people aware of, because a lot of times people tend to get somewhat frustrated with the whole commercialization of media.
And I don't think the big television things, let's just say they won't touch the very good things that we want to talk about.
Yeah.
They just don't want to be bothered.
Yeah.
They want to talk about that accident down here and all these
But it has its
horrible
role.
things.
It has its role. But with
Right.
all due respect, but the public
yeah.
right here, when this is where we live, that's where we reside, if you will, and it's very, very important to get some of this local activities in terms of who we are, what we do, how we interact with one another, and what's on around us, and let the world know what's going on in Portland, Oregon, and Multnomah
right.
County. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
And so that's a good thing.
No,
And again, that's why I'm saying we're going to be, by doing this kind of a deal, not too often you'll get the opportunity to really see the candidates. You see them in the so-called the debates aspect of it, but what we're offering the candidates here on the show that we're talking about right here with you, and also the Voters Digest for that matter, is to give them the opportunity to really articulate who they are, articulate what is the job about, if you will, if they're running for office, what job are they running for, and in all due respect, their qualifications for running for that job. Because that's another major issue. I think a lot of times we can get caught up in all the commercialization of the lobbying, as opposed to giving the people who have filed to run for office the opportunity to articulate their solutions to the issues.
That's right.
On the tape. And that's fair.
I know that's what you
Yeah.
want to have happen.
Yep.
Results.
Yes.
And so
And that's what we need.
that's right. That's good.
Because
That's
this
good.
is government. You're talking about government now, and people are constantly concerned about the kinds of monies that are being spent in government. And but the bottom line, at the end of the day, it's supposed to be a government of the people, by the people, for the people. And it can be very expensive, if you will, if we don't have these services. So consequently, when we're getting in there, the idea is to be able to say, okay, fine, these services are essential. They are essential. They're for the betterment of our way of life, for that matter. And there's a cost factor to it, and people are taxed. They're taxed accordingly.
Okay.
So it's like saying, we have to pay rent, if you will, for that, if you will. Got me? So we all have to be on top to make sure that these services are needed, and the price is right, if you will, because a lot of times in government You can't get the private sector involved in the government because it costs too much money. So I look at government from the standpoint of a startup.
All right. Okay.
They get into it. We got an issue that we have to solve, and then we got an issue we have to solve, and then naturally people get taxed, if you will, to be able to put together whatever staff or whatever mechanism to get that issue resolved, right? You got me? Now, once it's resolved, and it seems as though it is of a benefit, if you will, then in all due respect, then a private entity might come in and says, okay, fine, I think I can do the job or even better
Okay.
at a lower price.
Okay.
So that's why politicians are, and folks who are running the office are very essential, because they got to make the deal.
Okay.
And then they got to get back to us to say, okay, fine, guess what we're going to do? We're going to give you some of your tax dollars back. I haven't seen that of late, but
I don't think that's going to happen.
give you some of the monies back, if you will, because we found an entity that can do the job even better, right? The services, and then we go to the next one, right? You know what I mean? But and that's another interest there. We sort of like getting into one of my rationale for running for office. You know, those are some of the things that I'm kind of like interested in looking at. You know what I mean? We're paying a lot of taxes, and people are constantly talking about, well, again, Multnomah County, when you start thinking about property taxes and things of that nature, that's one of the jobs of Multnomah County, to pick up the taxes.
Yeah,
To keep the lights going. To keep the lights going.
Right.
See, on the social side,
Okay.
a lot of folks don't realize the many aspect of Multnomah County. When you think about the court system, when you pay your fines down there for running a red light or you're evicting someone, that's all incorporated. The bridges, when you see the bridges deal, when you think about the jailer, if you will, you got all that Multnomah County elections. It's a huge
That's right.
business, if you will, at the tune of about $2 billion.
That's right.
$2 billion, and its executive directors are 5 commissioners, one of which happens to be chair. You got me?
Okay.
And these are the executive directors. I mean, they're the ones that are running that shop, if you will.
That's right.
And monitoring, if you will, the services that are provided to the citizens. So it's very, very important that that electorate has a little background to be able to do that job. It's like a business.
I've been very satisfied with the structure of the county and the city.
Yes.
And the way they say, well, this person's supposed to control everything, and well, maybe not.
Right.
I'm just happy with the way things are going.
Yeah. There were some other little concerns that I would have with, for instance, the county's been kind of like I've been going to the county commissioners meetings since I'm running for office.
Yeah,
because the bottom line is very important. They meet once a week. You know, they meet once a week on a Thursday, and they start off about 9 o'clock, and they give citizens, well, at 9:30, and they give citizens, anybody for that matter, to come and spend 3 minutes, if you will, before the county commissioners, after they open the meeting, if you will. So I take the opportunity to say whatever I wanted to say.
Oh,
and
all right.
Other folks have the same deal. I look at that particular seat, that availability of that seat, as kind of like the 6th person. You know, like basketball and whatever, they always have the bench, right?
Oh, right.
And they have those 5 guys out there, and then all of a sudden they'll call in a substitute and whatever.
Substitute, yeah.
But this way, that 6th person has the opportunity at every meeting, right before they start the other formals, the other reporting back to the citizens of what activities happened between the last week and to date. You got me?
Okay.
So the name of the game is that you get some folks who are there who comment to those 3 minutes, have something to say. They might have some issues that are relevant, this, that, and the other, and the commissioners may check it out, and what they will do, they'll either assign their staff person to go and talk to the person after the 3 minutes, or something to that nature, or make note of it, and hey, it may be a good idea. Maybe someone's commenting about a service that wasn't performed or whatever. So, like you said, I think the system is good, you know, that they get those kind of comments. It makes the availability. So, because I'm running for county commissioner, I figured that, you know, it's like anything else. You want to get a better feel of what the county is all about, you go to those meetings.
That's right.
So when I filed, I made it a point that every Thursday I'm at the county commissioners meeting.
Okay.
And to listen. But if I got some things on my mind, I will make a statement. One of which, by the way, before I did that, I thought it would be a good gesture to begin with the, in all due respect, to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
Okay.
And so what I've been doing of late is that I've been basically having folks in my 3 minutes. I try to get to be the first guy, but you have the people that all stand up and we make a pledge of allegiance to the flag, which I think is good because we're all acquainted with that. Because when we were young, we all had to do it.
That's what we do at my meeting.
Yes. Okay.
Is we pledge allegiance to the flag.
And I think we should do that. I mean, that's the people who think, well, I don't like to do it this way, this way, but we got to have some sort of a structure. We got over 100 different cultures here, and that's when we pledge allegiance to that flag, it's as if to say we've got 100 flags out there,
Yeah.
and we got to have something that we can all at least have some consensus with. That's why it's called the United States of America.
That's right.
You got me? That's why it's a united nation. You got my point? So when we pledge allegiance to that flag, those words are very, very important, and it's kind of like it just lays out the groundwork of why we're meeting, if you will.
Okay.
You know, and I'll quote it just for those to remind folks about what that's all about. It says, "I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
Right.
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all."
Right.
That means a lot.
That's right.
It means a
Every
lot
word.
to all of us, for that matter. You know what I'm saying? And so some folks, like I say, agree to disagree, but the bottom line is that it's kind of like a standard for all of us because we're a multicultural immigrant environment.
You know, when you're coming to a meeting starting,
Yeah.
and everybody's sitting around, then they say, "Okay, let's have the Pledge of Allegiance." All of a sudden, that's it.
Yep.
It
Yep.
starts.
Yep. It
It
starts.
starts.
It starts.
It,
It really starts.
No longer are
Yes.
people just sitting around like
Right,
this.
Exactly. It
So,
really does.
yes,
really
it makes a
does.
difference.
Yes, it really does. And I realize there's some issues regards to in the schools and the various folks about the flag and this, that, and the other. But we need to really understand what that's all about. And I thought maybe that would be a good gesture, you know, because I'm very familiar with that, you know.
Okay.
To make it start off that way. So I'm asking for. So what I'm doing now, when I go, the first minute of my 3 minutes, I ask everyone to stand, to join me.
Okay.
In doing it. And, you know, naturally, I'd say 90% of the folks stand. You know, the other 10%, you know, there. But that's okay. That's their right, if you
Okay.
will. But I do it consistently.
Oh,
And
okay.
then the idea is that, you know, I'm asking now for a proclamation. So that they can, a proclamation meaning that that the chair will automatically either start it off, they will just, or maybe, and then share it with the commissioners. You know, maybe assign it to a commissioner to lead the Pledge of Allegiance. You know what I mean? Maybe once a month. So it'd be that commissioner would stand up and say, okay, fine, make the pledge and just go around the cycle. You know what I'm saying?
The fact that you're a veteran
Yeah.
doesn't hurt one bit.
No.
It's just
And then the other thing, and that was, I'm glad you brought that point up, because that was another rationale, because the people have been really reacting very positively, because I tell you, as you know, you're a military person too, and it wasn't greeted well when I got back from Vietnam. Got me?
oh yes,
So
that's
really,
right.
And there was some pretty heavy times during that time. And then all of a sudden people got on and said all of a sudden now it's kind of like a thanks for serving and this, that, and the other.
That's
and
right.
So this is another way of appreciating the fact that people acknowledge the fact that we don't, as one would say, we don't create wars.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we just have to serve the country. You know what I mean? And I'm not a warmonger or anything of that nature, not yourself. But the fact of the matter is, we serve this country. We serve this country. And so consequently, people need to know that. And so by doing this Pledge of Allegiance aspect of it, we can talk about it, just like we're talking about it now.
Yeah,
Why I'm doing this, you know what I'm saying?
that's right.
And then reaching out to vets, because we still have a lot of vets, as you know, after Vietnam, and then the Iraqi wars, things that we're having right now, the conflicts around the world, which we're serving and trying to bring democracy to all of these areas and whatever, but somebody's serving. And so now all of a sudden the younger people today, we have more of a technical war right now more than anything else, as opposed to the ground troops standpoint.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so there's a lot of issues and a lot of problems, and the young people that are coming back today, they've got PTSD. They got that. There was no such word when we were coming up.
Now just people have
Yeah,
that.
just people across the board. See.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of stresses and whatever, and so
That's right.
That's another area that we stress out. So the whole idea of having the Pledge of Allegiance and recognizing the military aspect of it that way, of thanks for serving aspect of it, one can talk about all those things. And we thank the county, because the county is very much involved. That's one of the areas, in fact, that I'm very interested in, and is that the county is very, very involved with reaching out to vets. They've got their own program.
Oh,
They got their own program. The county does. You know,
Really?
reaching out. Yes, they've got things like for housing, and they got all kinds of goodies. You know, they can do benefits. I mean, they just go right down the line. But it's got quite a program, and so that's one of the reasons why I'm there, to kind of help them out. I want to make sure that stays there. That particular group entity stays there, and then there's a kind of a tie-in with the VA. You know, from the standpoint
Okay,
of the
well, sure.
services, the services that exist, because they're the one stop, if you will, for all the vets, if you will. But all the other entities outside of that entity are basically still reaching out and saying thanks for servicing, and putting a few dollars together on the side to be very active in making sure they reach out to veterans like the county. And in this particular case right here, I went out before I got involved in this election and whatever. It's just a side note. I've been basically reaching out to vets because I've closed up my business, and one of the things I'm doing is that I'm reaching out to vets, and so
Okay.
and what I'm doing is basically my bottom line is that I'm identifying myself. That's one of the reasons why I wear the uniform that I have, to let people know that I'm a vet, a disabled vet, and whatever, and then hopefully I'm recognizable, whether it be a family member or a friend of a vet or whatever. And then the idea is I contact these individuals, and then I'll lead them towards to the VA. Because a lot of them are a little some of them tend to ward off. They don't relate to the VA or whatever. But I encourage them that those benefits are there, and the benefits have changed quite a bit.
right.
So if they go to the county, hopefully the county now will be able to say, okay, fine, well, yes, we are an organization, we're reaching out, but now this is what we can do at the county, but over here, this is what the VA can do for you too. See?
Right.
So it could be an entree with the county, then to the VA. And then what I do there is that I will make sure that the county has a benefit program, if you will, and this is kind of like the booklet, and they print those out on an annual basis, and these are all the benefits for veterans, dependents, and survivors. All the criteria. You can Google this information too, but this is a kind of a deal. And I will.
Okay.
And the whole idea is that if in all due respect, when elected, I want to make sure that every agency in the county has one of these.
Okay.
You know, that will be right there on the front desk. That when a person calls in and they just so happen to be a veteran calling, they can say, okay, fine. They have some idea of the services that are available, not only from the VA, but the county. See, I'm feeling that because the county is not the VA, you get me? Mm-hmm. But they can be that entree, right? You
Right.
get me? And see, that's a very important piece.
Right.
And then over here, there's a little keychain deal that the vets give out, the VA gives out, and there's one number on it. It says 1-800-273-8255. 1-800-273-8255. It says Veteran Crisis Line. But
Is that what it is?
Yeah, but realistically, it's not a crisis line, but it is a crisis line. Meaning this is 24/7. Someone will pick up that phone.
Get you to the right
24/7,
place.
Get you to the right places. See what I'm saying? So the idea is to make sure that all the agencies in the county has that number.
All right.
See, so when they pick up the phone and the vet calls, they don't have to worry about, well, go to this number or go here or go there.
Yeah,
No,
that's
just
right.
give them the number. Give them this number, say, call this so and so. But they would also be listed right there on the side. Well, call this number at the county, meaning that there's some services that are available there, but specifically for those services that the county can provide.
I'll admit, there's an awful lot.
A lot of stuff.
Many times when I call almost anybody,
Mm-hmm.
even the grocery store, and they say, if this is an emergency, call 911.
Right.
I hear that
Yes,
so much.
Yes.
Well,
yes.
don't people know that that's
Yeah, that's right.
what
That's-
they're
that's
supposed
right.
to do?
Well, like I said, for the vets, this is the 911 call.
okay?
They can call this number,
That's
the
good.
1-800, right? Okay, and they even got a vet. They got the website on there too. But the bottom line is that's that number that they
Okay.
should call. And then this is so I do that with I've done that with with this piece right here.
Okay.
And I'm still doing that, but like I said, naturally, I want to make sure that the county gets that, and they're able to do the outreach that they can do, and those areas that they can't do, they will send them on to the VA.
Okay.
With that kind of a deal. So that's one of the things that I do. As one of the things that, one of the reasons why I'm running, because that's one of the issues, right, along that particular line. The other issue is homelessness, you know, and
Yeah.
and
Okay.
actually, priority-wise, the vets have their own homeless problem situation, and they're housing folks.
They do.
Providing, yeah, they're
Yeah.
providing housing. Again, the number. See the same number. There's a process, but it's already there. Now, as far as the county is concerned, on the social side, they too are kind of like involved in the whole issue of the homeless, because the city and the county pretty well work together, so to speak. On the social side.
I know the city's out there trying to get them in
Oh, yes.
these buildings.
Yes,
and
yes, big time. And
It's just,
and you got mental illness out there. You got all kinds of folks that are having all kinds of issues, and the county provides some of those services, like mental illness. They really don't have a fixed housing program yet for the mental illness aspect of it, and even the homeless to a certain degree, you know. And I think that's another area that needs to be talked to.
this, we didn't have as bad a winter as we
Right.
did last
Oh,
year.
Yes. Oh yes.
But
yes.
it's still been cold.
Yes,
and
yes.
Last night, tonight.
Well, you know, I'll tell you something else, too, Richard. As I've learned, if you will, sitting there before the county, you know, on those
Okay.
Thursdays, and when that issue of Wapato came in,
Yeah.
it sort of brought back memories way back when, and how the taxpayers put all that money up,
It's
and then
such a
and then
shame.
sit there, and then politics prevented them from actually using it. It was politics that prevented that, and those are tax dollars that we could have used elsewhere. Maybe over $100 million or so, you know, to build that.
That's right. That and the interest.
And
it's-
wow, gee whiz, you know, and you said, wait a minute. And then they basically came up with another tax on taxpayers to get it built. See? So now all of a sudden, you know, you learn things, but, and you know, like all of a sudden, you know, there's politics and whatever, and they just recently, and everyone knew that, thank goodness for the Tribune and the Willamette Week and others, and from the media standpoint, they brought this issue out, if you will, and it was being discussed. And then the latest thing on that issue now is that initially the county was going to sell it.
That's
Gonna
right.
Sell it, and supposedly they sold it. But then on a perception basis, we thought maybe, well, what was being said was that we've sold it for $10.3 million or something like that, and from $100 million. What's going on here? But it's other people's money, right? You got me? You can't wait around and say, well, look, I want more.
I have to say, it's only worth what it's worth. That's
Yeah,
part of
see
the
what I'm
problem.
saying? But the point of the matter is that it was still taxpayers' money that
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And here we are. We're needing, if you will, housing, but shelter for the homeless.
That's right.
There's a difference between homelessness and sheltering. A shelter is
Okay.
almost like the jail that the county, because we're the county. The county basically house, if you will, any offenses or anybody that does something wrong. The police takes them over to the so-called jail. But I still call this a kind of a sort of a shelter for a moment, for a minute, just to
Right.
figure out what the person did. You know, book him in, book the person in, if you will, and clean him up, right?
Okay.
And get 3 meals a day, get good clean clothes, the whole nine, take care of them medically and all that other good stuff. And then they kind of go through the process in terms of going through the court system and this, that, and the other, find out what he did. If he didn't do that much of a crime, then they let him stay in the facility for a little longer and then he get released. If he's done something
Really?
beyond that certain criteria, they send him down to OSP. You know, the prison system that we had.
Okay.
And then they got long-term stuff. You got my point?
Okay.
So it's really just a holding deal for a moment or two. That's the way I look at it.
Okay.
I mean, and the county has that responsibility. Now it's an elected position, but that jailer is supposed to have that's what they do. They're supposed to have the housing, if you will, the shelter for I put a shelter. I'm only
Yeah.
using the shelter. So you think. So my thought was initially that, okay, fine. One, how many beds should the jailer, Multnomah County Jail, maintain? You know,
Okay.
They pretty well have the stats in terms of they should have some empty beds in some cases and enough. If there's a disaster or something like that, what do they do? You got me?
Okay.
So where do they go? So so my thought was, okay, if that's the case, we got this Wapato thing for 500 beds over there or something like that, and enough property, if you will, out of sight from downtown, all that good stuff, that those we can use that. That's shelter. It's not a jail. People are looking at it from the standpoint of a jail, but it's a shelter. Mental illness, maybe a certain portion of that could go to mental illness to help those people out, if you will, and build up on that, sections for that. They could rent some of those beds to other municipalities that are not part of the county or the city. Got me?
Okay.
They can do that kind of a deal. So I'm just saying that it looked like to me they could have made a better deal. And that's one of the things I want to do. And I've been talking about this piece, and other people have too. And it's still vacant. Like you said,
right.
Luckily we didn't have a bad winter. But imagine, it's really sad when you're driving down the street and you see folks on the side of the street, right? Digging in the garbage, throwing it on the streets,
Yeah.
right? And picking through it, this, that, and the other. And you say, wait a minute, something's wrong. And living under this rain and all this cold and whatever.
That's right. You wonder how they can do it.
And then you got a dry place over here that we own. A dry place. And we're spending twice as much money dealing with, i.e., maybe law enforcement and cleanup and all that other good stuff that you have to do. Because once the person just walks away, guess what? The services have to be provided, i.e., whether it be the city or the county, to clean it up.
That's right.
Right? You got me?
That's
Or if not there,
very unfortunate.
if they're using needles or something, that because of medication or whatever, they'll just throw them on the ground, if you
That's
will,
right. Is that how
and
it
then,
works?
then animals come by or whatever and stick themselves, or a kid might pick it up because
That's right,
it's
a
a
kid.
shiny object or something like that. So when you look at in terms of the need to open up those facilities to kind of get things arranged, and give a person a little dignity, from the standpoint of giving them the opportunity to take a good shower and eat a meal and get the medical attention they need for a minute or two, right?
Okay.
And figure out what the problem is. Do you have Social Security? Do you don't have Social Security? Did you commit a crime? And what do you have a job? I mean, that's that vetting process to try to get the person back so they can be part of society again. Got me?
Right.
That's not an easy task, especially
No.
when all the jobs have been
Very expensive.
Oh, very, very expensive. So I'm very, very interested in the whole issue of homelessness, and I'd like to bring some. I just want to be at the table, because some of that stuff to me is just common sense.
Okay.
But one thing I do know, that the public, I was part of that public, that paid for that facility over there,
Right.
and someone told me that, look, we needed that, so we need X number of dollars for you as far as your portion to build that building. Now all of a sudden, guess what? They didn't build it. They built it, but they didn't send me my money back.
Just a shame.
But they didn't send me my money back.
That's
They
just
didn't
a
reduce
shame.
my taxes. You know what I'm saying? You got me?
That's right.
Because a lot of times-
yours is gone.
It's gone. See? So now, as far as I'm concerned, it's back at the table. By the way, they were supposed to have sold it to a developer type guy and realtor developer, and they kind of like said, okay, fine. Then all of a sudden, the guy didn't meet the criteria.
Right.
And now they're looking at giving him an extension to try to find a
Another
purchaser,
buyer that'll
another
pay it.
buyer. But then the Tribune did an excellent article on that. In fact, if you want to see it, you can check it out. You can Google Wapato. You can Google Wapato.
okay.
And the latest article for the Tribune, they did an excellent article on it. They talked about the one who had supposedly purchased it, but didn't purchase it. They just basically put a couple dollars on it to hold it, to basically go out and look for another builder or developer. Then I saw the word family in there. So I said, that was the first time I heard that, meaning that the person who bought it was basically kind of a family kind of an organization kind of a deal. And they were just trying to find something, no due respect, to look at the better retirement or get some, make some money.
Okay.
Okay, fine. But that wasn't the perception I got when it was said and announced that they'd sold the publication, the Albatross was not there anymore. We're not going to constantly be feeding it and be responsible for it and whatever. Now we're right back to the square one again. That's ridiculous. So as far as I'm concerned now, let's use it
Okay.
if we get it back. But they've given them an extension, which bothers me also too, because it's my understanding that I saw that at the last meeting Commissioner Smith had said that she wanted to have the Wapato as a discussion for this upcoming meeting for Thursday, and then now all of a sudden I hear that the chair of the commissioner, Deborah Kafori, basically said, no, we're not going to have any discussion about Wapato, and she was the one that gave up the extension without getting a vote from the other 4 commissioners.
Okay.
See, that's not right. That's not right.
Okay.
See? That's not right.
That's right.
So let's take politics out the game. We need to take politics out the game and do it right. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So anyway, that's another reason why I'm interested in that arena because we need somebody that can really get the politics. I want to get politics out of the issues because otherwise we never solve them, right?
Yeah, right.
And they just keep mounting and mounting like Wapato.
That's right.
See, if you say you're going to build something and that's what you're going to build, that's what needs to be done. That needs to be done on the
They
front
should
end.
have put prisoners in right away, just like they said.
Day one when they did it, right? When it was ready, they should have used it. The other one's about this whole issue about, just recently, we had, I got the veterans care, senior citizen, the affordable housing aspect of it. Well, in all due respect, we're not really in the housing. That's the city's job. That's what they're supposed to do. In many ways, I know it's kind of like both ends.
Yeah, affordable
both
housing.
ends. But the housing, they're the one that carries the permits. It either says you can build a high rise or you can't build this and you can't build that. And so the deal there is that you ask yourself the question. Yeah, I'm interested in affordable housing too, but I'm also interested in home ownership. The people who worked hard to get their homes that are in communities. You got my point? Mm-hmm. See what I'm saying? And there's all kinds of impact on those folks. We like to make sure we keep those families. You know, people who have worked hard to get that home ownership, right? Home ownership, seniors, you know. But now we got this big word now within our area called gentrification.
Oh,
gentrification in Multnomah County.
Okay.
And the district that I'm running for, there's some major gentrification issues. You got me? Excuse the perception that the so-called black community is in District 18, so to speak, and it's all within District number 2 of the county.
Okay.
So naturally, that's an area that I'm very familiar with that area, and we could do a better job on that. And I've done some things in the past along that particular line. And then the other thing that I think bothered a lot of folks was there's been some divide, if you will, in regards to race. And it's unfortunate, but that's a key aspect of it. In fact, it reminded me of several key folks in the mental health area and whatever were having communication problems with staffers and this, that, and the other. At the end of the day, the person left. First they were fired, then they came back. But imagine how much money was spent. The person was given a stipend. I don't know, it was $100,000 or so. It was quite a bit of money, maybe $25,000. But my point is that those are dollars, tax dollars.
Yeah, that's right.
That we could have used elsewhere. You got me? Work a deal out with it. If you got the best person and you're letting them go, that bothers me. It bothers everybody. Find out what the problem is, but keep them on the job.
Some of these lawsuits bother me.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. These lawsuits. I mean, somebody needs to get that squared away of what's going on. You're there for a job aspect of it. But if it's politics, then I really have some problem. And that's what I saw. I saw a lot of politics in that arena. So we lost both ways. We might have lost the best person for the job, and we lost money. Then it's going to cost us all kinds of monies, if you will, to try to find someone else.
Okay.
That might not last. So that's an area that needs to be discussed. Gladys McCart, the old Gladys McCart, when she was there, something like this was happening with regards to the politics of this or race or whatever, and she put together this committee. It was kind of like a nonpartisan committee routine. She put that thing together. Not just saying it just in a basic way, and as a result of that, it'd been around for about 11 years. And then as soon as she left that position, after those 2 terms aspect of it, guess what? The person who followed her did away with it. And now today we needed it back. So as a result of that, I'm sitting up there listening to that stuff. So I took my 3 minutes one day to say, okay, to remind them of that story by telling them the story. And then I brought the chairperson of that committee, who was still around. I had her to come over at the commission meeting and testify about the fact that she was the person and she was available to educate the commissioners. Well, the chair, well, right in front with it, they acknowledged it, but they've never called her since.
Okay.
And we still have the problem. But my point that I'm making is that it's just knowledge. You know, I've just been around long enough to know that was happening. See what I'm saying? So that's another area that I'm interested.
Sometimes you have to stay on things until something gets resolved.
My point is that if you hired the right person to begin with, that's who you stick with.
Okay.
If you don't have the right hiring process, then guess what? You're gonna lose. And at the end of the day, we're losing. We're spending all this time, all that money on politics.
Okay.
When we could either put that money into other services or give our money back to the taxpayers who are having problems paying taxes and this, that, and the other, right? Losing their homes and stuff.
Okay.
See, so that's a heavy piece. And then the other one is the whole issue with small businesses. Small businesses is the backbone, in all due respect, of this whole area.
Yeah, that's right.
And we do a lot of.
I know about that.
You know about that part, right? You got me.
Small business support.
Yeah, and my wife and I, she owned an enormous kitchen. She had her own kitchen, and we saw that the county basically did all of the inspection, food inspection. That's another Asian element in that piece. But the bottom line is that they spend a lot of time trying to make sure that anchor, which is small business, are stable.
Okay.
Very important. Very important. And you almost have to have a kind of a business-minded person that has been involved in that kind of arena to be able to understand what the situation is, right? Does that make sense? You get my point?
Of course.
See?
Yeah.
And so I see that might be a value from the standpoint of my being on the commission along that particular line. The point I'm making is that I wouldn't be running for the position if I didn't have the background.
That's
at least
right.
the exposure. And I think that's very important. And I'm kind of deviating a little bit from my chat here now, talking about my run, but I'm also trying to educate the public as well as the person who wants to run for office. If you got some abilities and about a position that's available for you to run for, please run.
Oh, okay.
We need the leadership. We need the leadership. And hopefully anybody that comes in here to be interviewed, to talk about running for office. I take my hat off to anybody nowadays that wants to run for office.
That's right.
It's not trust me, it's not the best job in the world. I tell you, who wants to run for office?
And then you get everybody says everything against you.
Oh my God, yes.
You're
you
an
gotta
open
remember,
target.
That's right. That's why you got to remember, you got to be a strong person in making sure you identify with the issues. You got me?
Okay.
Because trust me, if you light on that, it's gonna cause you some problems. Because people are going to find, sometimes they even create it on you, whatever. But the fact of the matter is that you got to understand, it's a thankless job. You know,
because of so much criticism.
It is.
That you face.
And with the enormous responsibility that one has, and you look at those directors that are sitting up there, and when they're not working together, and because you got 4 districts, and then you got a chairman, which is the chair, and they basically. They indirectly, you got district. Each one of them has a district, and each have all of that responsibility in each of those districts.
Right.
You know what I mean? And they're supposed to monitor that district.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Then, if they got issues, and because it's about the money too, the budget, because the person who handles the budget is the chair. Even though we got an elected elected county auditor who's our banker, so to speak. But the chair basically has the money. And says, okay, fine, give me your plan. Tell me what's going on in your district and what's good, what's bad, this, that, and the other, what changes you're seeing, whatever. Okay, fine, well then what is it going to cost? And each district brings the money. Brings the budget. Says, this is what it's going to cost me to maintain the services that I need for the constituency in my district. Mm-hmm. They have to say that, right? You got me?
Okay.
They bring it to the chair, and then each one of them do that. And then all of a sudden, based on what, and then they say, well, okay, fine, we're going to need X number of dollars. That's what the chair says. Okay, fine. So, auditor, how much money do we have coming in?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
This is how much money we got coming in. Oh, we're short. Oh, we're short? Well, we got to raise some taxes. We got to find some money.
Or find somewhere to cut.
Yes, or if not that, go back to each of those districts and say, hey, okay, fine, well, I'll tell you what, we got to cut you. Now, they don't equally cut now. At times, as far as I'm concerned, it should equally. If it's you got 4 of them, right? That's
Yeah.
If you got 4,
Okay.
a quarter each.
All right.
1/4 each you cut, blah blah blah, and then everything is cool. But a lot of times politics plays another role with that. See, and so in some areas get less than or whatever. Got me? So you
Okay.
got to have a very efficient person who happens to be that leader for that entity. You got to get this politics out of that too. See, a lot of times. So the line, at the end of the day, the budget gets toned, and then they dole out the money, and then they periodically come every week and talk about what's going on in their respective district. But they do that through the chair. So the chair then makes the decisions as to what gets presented
Okay.
at the commission meetings. Right? Got me?
Okay.
I'd like to see more participation. I mean, I see just one person talking, but and the only person that I see bringing some stuff to the table about issues are those folks that sitting on the bench. It takes 3 minutes, and how about what's 3 minutes? What can you do in 3 minutes? You understand what I'm saying?
There's not much to say.
You got nothing to say. So I think that's an area I'd like to see change. I'd like to see an ombudsman. Someone that says after the person gives up the 3 minutes, after 3 minutes, then you take that person on the sides and okay, exactly what's on your mind, but you identify what district they live in, and then you make sure that district person for that chair,
Yeah.
one, two, 3, or 4, knows what's going on with that person, and go to that person. Okay, fine, that's the ombudsman. Okay, this is what the issue. Are you providing that service? No, I'm not. Well, why aren't you doing? That kind of thing.
Okay.
So you need to know what that process is all about, because it's a big job just being the chair.
Right.
Just being the chair, because everybody's lobbying for their own piece, and I think the only way you can be fair, as far as I'm concerned, you just divide it equally across the board.
Okay.
But at the same time, you got to make sure that whoever leads that district, because they're individuals too, they're running it, right? You got to get their politics out there, because they got favoritism and all that other good stuff. Or if not that, if they on the job training, trying to figure out what to do, when you run while they're running for office, they're gonna take care of their buddies first, i.e., politics, right?
Right.
You got me? And not dealing with those services.
Work in progress.
Yeah. Well, I've said enough about this, but that's basically.
Yeah. Is
While
there
I'm
another
running.
item or two here about safe?
Well, safety.
communities?
Clean air for sure, right? You got clean air. Naturally, you got DEQ at the state. I mean, you're going to be on that table, because a lot of folks, I learned that quite a bit. I live in an area, and people are either recycling oil and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's things
you
like
remember
that.
the glass factory, that stuff goes out, and you're suffocating, and you got diesel off the freeway if you're close to the freeway. You got to suck that up, and that's a very important piece. Clean air, right? Got me? Clean water. I can remember, when the school district.
I think we have the best water, and then I just see in the paper, and by email,
Yep.
it said there's bad water all over the country, and I'm thinking, I don't know about that.
Yeah, we've got some pretty good water. I mean,
we have the best.
We're still very community oriented. In fact, I can say that because I was Portland Public Schools. Sits in that district where I'm at.
With all that
District
lead,
number-
that's
yeah,
right.
all that lead. Remember that? All that lead.
Well, I don't know where that is now.
Oh well, in all due
I hope
respect,
somebody's working
in
on
all
it.
due respect, it's a problem. You know why? Because those young people are still being given bottles.
That's very
That's-
bad,
that's-
because every bottle
That's right.
goes out in the
That's right.
garbage
Are they
and
touching,
ends up in the ocean.
But besides that, those kids are touching it. They're using bottles together. You don't know where. You know what I'm saying? You got me? It's an unsanitary situation. They should have had that water done immediately. But guess what they did? They passed a bond. Remember they passed that bond.
They sure did.
To build these buildings, right? That we got taxes again for, right? But as far as I'm concerned, the first thing they should have done was to make sure that those kids were drinking good, clean water
Okay.
in all of the schools. Okay.
All right.
And I want to make you say that's water, and then check out the pipes that we as citizens are drinking to make sure that that's clean. Okay.
Okay.
And the same thing with the air. If diesel is a problem on that freeway, do something about it. Maybe a diversionary system or whatever, filtering system or something. But that needs to be taken care of. The air is very, very important that we breathe, right? Very important.
Let me tell you something about that. We're never going to get perfect air because of what they do over in China and India. They have their furnaces just belching toxic fumes out in the air.
Wow.
And those people are falling all over the place with lung problems and
Yep,
cancer and everything right there in their cities, Shanghai and all those
Yep,
cities.
yep.
But that smoke is, to some degree, is working over here,
Yep.
and it's very unfortunate.
Yeah.
We can't get rid of it all.
Yeah.
So, but we spend all this money, huge amounts of money, on cancer.
Well, when you think about that, suppose this United Nation that we helped put together, that we pretty well funding here in these United States. See, United Nation, that means all the nations are supposed to be getting together to talk about clean air and clean water, right?
Right.
You got me? But, you know, people, they get very selfish in many ways, politics. Again,
Right.
You got me? And I'm saying to you that the only thing I can do now is sort of look at it, just like we're looking at it, but at least I can do something here.
That's right.
I can do
We
something
need
here.
to stick about here.
Yes, right. In this, I'm interested in my district and hopefully the rest of Multnomah County to share, if you will, the things that I've been doing in my district with the other district directors, if you will, commissioners. You got me? And basically get them to say, okay, fine, we need to recognize it because it spills over here in my district. Let's get yours cleaned up. It spills over here. So my point is that sharing ideas, right? I don't expect to know everything. I'm sure the other ones who are elected to office bring something to the table that I'm not familiar with. But the whole idea is for the betterment of the entire county. Does that make sense?
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? So if we're taxed, and the people, I want the people to feel comfortable. If we need that extra money, make sure that city auditor knows that we got all this other stuff that we're doing, and we close down shop on something we don't need to fill the hole over here.
Okay.
See, and then we need to do that. Because a lot of times what happens is that politics, i.e., the makeup of the directors as such,
Okay.
that guess what? They just say, "Hey, auditor, I need the money."
Okay.
You know what I mean? And I think we need to have more transparency. I put it that way.
Okay.
A little bit more transparency, because I do plan to continue my seat here with you in the Oregon Voters Digest
Oh,
if
okay.
I'm elected, because I want to
Yeah.
share with the public.
Well, that's
where we are.
right. They need to. It's an excellent place.
Yes, it is.
For you to be heard.
Yes, it is.
Because I don't hear what Deborah Kafoury says.
That's right. All the other commissioners.
I have no idea.
Yep. All the other commissioners.
Unless we go out of the trouble of
That's
it.
right. That's right. So if I have to be a bad guy, that's what I'm going to be. If I get elected, I'm going to get elected, and if I'm not elected, we're going to still sit down and talk about it.
Bad commissioner, good commissioner.
That's right. So yeah, we need more transparency. Help them out, because we just kind of got to the point we got lackadaisy, and we tend to forget about our because the responsibility really lies on the voters still.
Mm-hmm.
That's what see. If we're going to get good leadership, people are going to have to get up and vote. People
Okay.
need to know who that person is, and people need to know what are their qualifications. And that's basically what I put together a simple deal, and it tells you the issues that I'm interested in, and on the back of it,
These are good.
It
This
tells
is
you
good.
all of the background that I've done and what I'm doing right now. And you need to ask, see all that stuff
Oh,
I've been
yes.
involved in. See, and I think that's what you need. You need a resume. So when a person is running for office,
Wow.
and we're going to be asking people, and we're trying to help them now, because we're telling them now before they even come to the table, bring your issues, bring the solution to the issues in your own words, whatever you feel you can better the situation in your district that you're running, and then at the same time bring your resume,
Right.
and then it'll kind of give us a better feel. And we want you to articulate. We're not telling you, if you will, we're now going to draw this thing up for you. That's what you need to have, because we're going to be asking the same questions. You know,
Okay.
what are you running for? What are the issues in your respective district, or wherever you're running for? And then what qualifies you to take the leadership to resolve some of those issues?
Okay.
That's all we want. Got me? Is that fair?
Right. Right.
See me? So that's kind of like where we are right now at this point in time.
Oh,
Look
no,
like
we're-
we're getting pretty close to the end.
But there's still some time.
But let's reinvite
That's-
the other folks to come. We want to make sure we can invite those folks.
Okay, that's right.
See,
That's,
here's one right here. A place that I used to work for was United Way. I used
Oh.
to work for United Way,
okay.
and doing United Way.
What
I
do they
basically-
do?
Well, what they do, in all due respect, they vet out what the issues are out there, and then they create, if you will, a solution.
Oh,
And then they raise the money for the group to take care of it.
oh,
They either identify an existing agency that can do the work, they can solve their problem.
Okay.
Or they basically advertise that there's a need and looking for a contractor to come and fund. And they
Okay.
pick the money up to do that. I think it's neat. It was a very interesting piece because every money has to be spent, has to be sent, just like a budget.
Okay.
You say fine, and then they do that, and so they pretty well are supposed to know all the issues for the city.
Mm-hmm.
Get me?
Okay.
And they said these are all the issues, these are all the service agencies, and this is how much money that they need. You got me?
Okay.
And they go out and raise the money, and that's what I was doing. I was one of the guys that was responsible for several entities.
It's a hard job.
It was a hard job. I had all of industry, I had Clackamas County, and I think I had education too at the same time. But that was an interesting deal, see? That was So as a result of that, one of the things I wanted to do was that I wanted to say, that for instance, like you're talking about housing or something like that for homeless or whatever. If we need something, let's say need some money to rehab or fix up the Wapato. I think it's going to be about $1 million to get clean it up and bring it up to operation, whatever. I'm saying, why not create a deal where you says, okay, fine, adopt a homeless program.
Okay.
See,
All right.
so because nowadays at United Way, it's not just raising the money and putting it all in pot. You can designate wherever you want your money to go when you give your money to United Way. So my thing is, I'm going to go up to United Way and say, hey, look here, I'd like to get an adopt the homeless kind of a program.
Okay.
So after we find out a solution for the homeless aspect of it, this is how much money I need for each one of these guys. And so I'm going to tell the public, out through United Way, hey, look here, if you want to help us out with this situation with the homeless and get them, i.e. housing, when I say housing, but shelter, especially shelter, like right now, you can do that. And here's the name. So when you say when you dictate or you give monies to the United Way, I want to give my $1,000 to my home, and they'll give you a name. Bang, there it is.
Okay.
See, that's just some ideas about when you come up with some stuff.
Now we're
about ready for this. We're about ready. How much time do we have
well,
there
just
in
about
the
a
room
full
there?
minute.
Yeah, about another
Yeah.
another 3 minutes maybe.
No, not that long.
Okay. Okay.
Just over 1 minute.
Yeah, about 1 minute. Just over 1 minute.
Let's see. Is this there
Okay. You got that?
for veterans?
That's right. That's it. I'm gonna be giving those out to all the agencies within the county.
Okay.
There you go. There you go.
You must have a bunch.
You want to show it to him? Yeah. You want to show it again? There you go.
Oh.
Yeah. There you go. He's
great.
got it right there. That and this chain right here. We're gonna drop off that number. You got to drop off that number. That's a 24/7 number that a vet or a family member of a vet or whatever can call that number and tell them that they got a veteran residing with them or they know of someone, blah, blah, blah. That person will be contacted. They will be asked for that last four of their Social Security number to see whether or not they qualify, and they can do that. And boom, you can get them into the system. They'll be given a card, and you're on your way.
Okay. Now, you go ahead and close. Could you go ahead and close out this portion of the program? And I guess we'll have
Start up with the other. We'll have a film right off the bat.
maybe just our name up there.
Okay, good.
That'd be okay.
Put our name up there. Okay, good.
And
hopefully, again, please, for those who are interested in interviewing, please give us a call. Who are running for office, and we'll be more than glad to interview you.
okay. That's it. Okay, and Bruce is going to introduce the second
Yep, yep.
his show.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Okay.
All right.
We may want to introduce ourselves. Why don't you introduce yourself? Because you're the guy.
I'm Richard Carpenter. You're Bruce Broussard, running for Multnomah County Commissioner, District 2.
But no, this is the second half of our show.
This is the second half.
Of your show.
Well,
But
whatever.
we're going to be talking about campaign finance.
That's right.
reform.
One person can't have too many
there,
shows.
There you go.
here.
That's right. That's right. This segment we're going to be talking about campaign finance reform.
Okay.
And it just so happened I had the opportunity to interview the person who talked about finance reform on Oregon Voters Digest.
All right.
And I thought it was a very interesting one, and it's one that needs to be shared with many other viewers, like shows like yours, because we're right in the midst, if you will, of the elections and whatever, and this is a reform, so to speak. There's always been an interest from the standpoint of making sure we get as many people involved, and money has always been an object. Mm-hmm. A lot of times, if you don't have any money, you can't be effective, and we're really trying to get the representation of people across the board.
Right.
And so anyway, but the bottom line is that this was one area that was their position in terms of how they can improve that process. You know, because in all due respect, at the end of the day, we're looking for good leadership, whether they've got money or they don't, and we're just looking for the good leadership. Okay. And so a guy by the name of Dan Meek was my guest on this previous Sunday show on Oregon Voters Digest, and I interviewed him, and he basically went through the whole definition of what he had introduced as a reform, and in fact, it impacted the county here in the area, in the county, and it capped the amount of donations that an individual can support, if you will, towards a candidate.
He's a very involved attorney.
Very, he's an attorney, right, big time. And so he capped it. His particular deal, he caps it up at $500. So a corporation can only do 500, not 1,000, not 5,000, $500, and that's pretty heavy across the board. Sometimes it impacts little people and as well as big business or whatever business. But anyway, he does a good job. So why don't we just go on and look at that interview, and then we'll come back, Richard, and talk a little bit about it. Okay?
All right.
So with it, there we go.
Yep.
We've got a very important piece this time around, and I'm talking about campaign finance along that particular line, and the whole issue of how do we control, if you will, the kinds of monies that pretty well, let's just be upfront with, buying a seat, just buying a candidate, and whether or not that is the best way, if you will, of getting the kind of leadership that we need to deal with the issues. I'm just kind of like throwing something out. Dan, you've seen Dan here before on the Oregon Voters Digest, but the whole issue is that in our process, we're looking for leadership to deal with the issues for whatever area, for whatever situation it is. And so I'll let Dan sort of explain and give up the rationale as to why he got into this particular situation here, talking to this issue, and then he can talk specifically to the county, because I think that's where the county and the city. He's got something that he's already he's imposed it. He's put it on the table, and there's been some kind of glitches, whatever, and the entities stopped it. They wouldn't accept it, but the people voted it in, and then now all of a sudden that was Multnomah County, and then now at the city of Portland, he's trying to basically do the same thing. But anyway, this is why we're there. Dan, welcome aboard. Okay,
Thank you,
buddy?
Bruce.
All right, good. I'm
Thanks.
glad you're here, buddy, because it's really much needed. They're going to be closing the door very shortly, come March, as far as candidates are concerned. So this is a very, very important issue. So please pay attention. Okay, Dan, welcome again aboard. Okay, let's talk about the deal. How did you get into this deal? Why?
Well, I got into it because I was representing utility ratepayers in various rate cases at the Oregon Public Utility Commission. And I found that if I won a case or I won in the Oregon courts, got findings that the utilities were breaking the law and charging rates that were too high and illegal rates, then the utilities would just run over to the Oregon legislature and get the law changed retroactively. It's because they had so much, they were funding so many of the legislators. The legislators did whatever they wanted to, and that was both Republicans and Democrats overwhelmingly would vote in favor of what the utilities wanted to do. So it occurred to me that nothing can be really, no progress can be made on consumer protection or environmental protection or issues like fair taxation as long as our politicians can be, are basically up to the highest bidder. And Oregon is one of only 6 states with no limits at all on campaign contributions.
Wow.
We'll get into this a little bit more. What I'd like to start with, though, is this slide, which I always like to contradict the host's previous guest.
Okay, yes.
Your previous guest said Oregon corporate taxes were very high. In fact, Oregon corporate taxes are extremely low. This first chart is from the study by the Tax Foundation that indicates that Oregon's business taxes are in fact tied with Connecticut for the lowest, and that was based on 2014. And then they updated the study in 2015 and found that Oregon's overall business taxes were the second lowest in America. The only lower was Oklahoma, a little bit lower.
It's on the screen now, yeah.
And this reflects our campaign finance system. It's the corporations that make the big contributions to candidates, and so they have to pay attention to them. In Oregon, you can't really, if you're a public office holder, you can't afford to alienate any big corporation, because any big corporation can suddenly fund your opponent to an unlimited degree, even $1 million if they want to. The converse of that, or I guess the other side of it, is that Oregon is extremely high when it comes to income taxes on the working poor. This slide indicates that Oregon ranks second highest in the country in the share of state and local taxes paid by individuals, and Oregon has the third highest income taxes in the country for a family of 4, earning at 125% of the poverty line. Now, guess what? The folks living at the poverty line or slightly above it aren't making a lot of campaign contributions, so they get high taxes in Oregon rather than the low taxes that Oregon corporations get. And those taxes are, in fact, there are bills at the Oregon legislature that will make this, in this session, which just started a couple of days ago, that will actually make the corporation taxes go down even further.
Really?
Oh, yeah. This is, the bankruptcy of Oregon's campaign finance system is well recognized around the country. This slide is from the state integrity investigation of the Center for Public Integrity, which in about 2 years ago determined that Oregon rated an F on virtually every measure of fighting corruption in state government. The only thing that they did not get an F in, they got a D- in legislative accountability. Then they ranked all of the states in terms of how good or bad their systems were for campaign finance regulation. And they determined that Oregon was the second worst in America. Can you guess which state was worse?
Not California.
Only Mississippi.
Mississippi.
Only Mississippi. That's right. Oregon is the worst when it comes to campaign finance regulation. Only Mississippi is rated worse by the state integrity investigation of the Center for Public Integrity. Is a very well-respected and long-term organization for looking into things. This next chart indicates the massive increase in spending, and this is just for candidates for the Oregon legislature. It's gone up from, this is total campaign spending for them, it's gone up from about a little under $4 million in 1996 to about $30 million in the last 2 election cycles. And the interesting thing about that is that most races for the Oregon legislature involve almost no money at all.
No money?
No money, because most of them are in districts that are either overwhelmingly Democratic registration or overwhelmingly Republican registration. So there are no contests. In about a third of all races in Oregon for the legislature, there's only one major party on the ballot in November because the other party doesn't bother to run anybody. There are also very few primary fights. That is, incumbents very rarely face anyone in the primary of their own party. The spending in Oregon governor's races has also increased dramatically, as you can see from this chart, from about $2 million to over $20 million. So the spending in Oregon legislative races is really focused on just a few races. That is, maybe there are 3 or 4 competitive races for the Oregon Senate in every cycle. Maybe there are 10 competitive races for out of the 60 seats in the Oregon House. And so this shows that the amount that's spent by the top 10 candidates, and this is each one of them average, for the Oregon House in the last election was $825,000 each for an Oregon House seat. And remember, these seats can be won with as few as about 11,000 votes. So we're talking about $80 per vote is being spent in order to win races in the Oregon House. And
like a state. Which one? Like, can you give us a sampling? Like, which state? Which office?
This is the top 10 candidates for the Oregon House of Representatives.
Okay.
These basically are in the Portland suburbs.
Oh, really? Okay.
And in a couple of districts up and down the Willamette Valley where there's no overwhelming Democratic registration or no overwhelming Republican registration. And so the top candidates are now in both the House and Senate routinely spending over $1 million each on their campaigns. This gives Oregon the most expensive races for the legislature of any state other than New Jersey. At least that's what the Portland Oregonian newspaper says. And of course, if you're in New Jersey, if you're in northern New Jersey, you have to buy into the New York City media market. If you're in southern New Jersey, you have to buy into the Philadelphia media market. But Oregon almost outstrips New Jersey in the cost of elections, the amount spent in order to win seats in the legislature.
Okay.
Oregon's not only bad when it comes to lack of limits on contributions or expenditures, it's also ranked an F when it comes to disclosure of the sources of money in political ads. Washington, by the way, ranks by the Corporate Reform Coalition, rates an A. Oregon, however, is an F. Oregon used to have a statute that required every campaign ad to at least identify its source. But the Oregon legislature in 2001 conveniently repealed that statute. There was one person who testified against repealing it, and that was me. That was me. They repealed it, and it was a Republican majority legislature at the time, but it was a Democratic governor. It was Governor Kitzhaber who signed that bill. Of course, we urged him to veto it, but he signed it, which means in Oregon, political ads can be completely anonymous.
Wasn't he a Democrat?
Yes. He was elected as a Democrat. That's correct. Okay. Now, 11 other states not only have disclosure of, that says this ad was placed by such and such, but these states, 11 other states, require that the ads identify in the political ads themselves the largest funders of the ad. Okay. And here's a list of those states that include California and Washington, among others. The effect of including in a political ad and requiring that political ads identify their top funders is a very important reform. It was part of the Multnomah County initiative that you mentioned a minute ago that we'll be turning to in a second. California has had that law for some time. And in 2014, it was that law that prevented Chevron Corporation from essentially taking over the city of Richmond, California. Chevron has a large refinery in Richmond, and it had experienced a series of explosions and toxic gas releases. So the city council of Richmond was considering, requiring Chevron to at least notify the city when a toxic gas cloud was about to be released. So Richmond in 2014 decided to take over the city government instead. And so they recruited and ran their own candidates for mayor and for all of the seats of the city council. And they spent $3 million promoting those candidates. Richmond as a city is only about 110,000 people. So $3 million campaign, they outspent their opponents by a factor of 50. But California law required that their billboards and their brochures and their ads on TV and radio indicate who the major funder of the advertisement was. And so every one of their ads had to say, major funder, Chevron, Inc. They massively outspent their opponents, and every one of Chevron's candidates overwhelmingly lost because their ads had to indicate that they were the candidate of Chevron.
Okay.
Now imagine that in Oregon. Imagine in Oregon if the candidate had to say in the candidate's ad that the major funders were Georgia Pacific, Dow Chemical, and whatever, Nike. Okay. Let's be realistic. Probably Nike.
Okay.
Probably Nike. But So that's another important reform. We got these reforms, limits on contributions, and taglines in political ads. That was passed in 2016 by Multnomah County voters for Multnomah County elections. Only 89% voted yes.
89%.
89% voted yes. 11% were holdouts.
89%.
The provisions of that charter amendment, it's a charter amendment, so the Multnomah County Commission can't change it.
Okay.
This is an important part of reform.
They can't change
campaign finance, right? You need to make campaign finance changes in the county charter or in the city charter or in the Oregon Constitution, so the commissions, the elected commissions or the elected legislature can't change it because they're elected under a big money system. They don't want reform. If you pass just a statute or an ordinance that the commission or the legislature can change, you're asking for trouble. The people of Massachusetts some time ago enacted a public funding system for their campaigns. So the Massachusetts legislature then refused to fund it.
Okay.
When the people sued the legislature, and actually the Supreme Court of Massachusetts ordered that the legislators' cars, automobiles, would be seized and sold to provide funds for the public funding campaign since they weren't funding it. And so the Massachusetts legislature, the most, reputed to be the most liberal legislature in America, got together and repealed the whole system on a voice vote, so none of them could be held responsible. The same thing happened in Missouri, when Missouri adopted campaign limits by initiative. Same thing happened in South Dakota just last year.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So you have to change the charter. We changed the charter. We prohibited contributions by corporations and other entities. We limit any any candidate receiving $500 from any individual or political committee. We created the concept of the small donor committee, which can accept only contributions from individuals in amounts of $100 or less, and they can then contribute those funds to candidates or spend them as they wish. And it requires that the 5 largest true original sources of funds be prominently disclosed on all political advertisements. That went into effect in Multnomah County for Multnomah County elections on September 1st of last year.
Okay.
It was widely supported by political minor parties, Progressive Party, Green Party, Working Families Party. It was supported by NAACP, the Sierra Club, the Teamsters, a wide variety of folks, and including, strangely enough, the Multnomah County Democratic Party. The major opponent of campaign finance reform in Oregon is the statewide Democratic Party.
The statewide
Democratic Party. They not only don't adopt campaign finance reform in the Oregon legislature, it has never adopted limits on contributions. It has only repealed disclosure requirements. It has several times repealed contribution limits that were adopted by voters. It repealed them in 1973, it repealed them in 1997. So they not only do that, but the Democratic Party and its operatives routinely intervene when it comes to folks who are trying to put measures on the ballot for campaign finance reform. They intervene to challenge ballot titles. They intervene to file lawsuits. So the Democratic Party is the major opponent of campaign finance reform in Oregon.
Interesting.
We now have, before we get to this city measure, we have underway on the state level for the year 2020 an initiative petition to amend the Oregon Constitution to enable these kinds of reforms that we've been talking about. We were going to do this in 2018, but of course the former executive director of the Democratic Party of Oregon filed a ballot title challenge, which is currently in the Oregon Supreme Court. The Oregon Supreme Court is typically now taking 4 months to decide ballot title challenges, which means if you want to do an initiative, you go out, you draft the initiative and file it, then you go out and collect at least 1,000 signatures, submit the signatures, get them verified by the Secretary of State, and then that starts the ballot title process. So you have to collect the 1,000 signatures and then stop. Wait for the ballot title process. It takes a month, ballot title process, unless someone files a challenge to the ballot title, which is written by the Attorney General of the state, unless someone files a challenge in the Supreme Court. And the former executive director of the Democratic Party of Oregon did file the challenge. And so briefs have been filed in the Supreme Court. course, they ask for an extension of time to file their reply brief. So it's all a matter of delay, 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 keep people off the street so they can't collect signatures. So we may have to go, if that stays in the Supreme Court long enough, we may have to go with the initiative in the year 2020, and we'll be able to start collecting signatures on that in July of this year. So we'll have 2 full years to collect those signatures. And when you have a campaign that is primarily volunteers collecting signatures, it takes quite a long time to collect them. To collect the number that you need for a constitutional amendment, you need what, about 115,000 valid signatures, which means you probably need to collect 170,000 raw signatures. Now, on the city level, we've taken the measure that county voters enacted that I mentioned a minute ago, and we have filed that as a City of Portland initiative to amend the Portland City Charter to do that. And that we got our ballot title a couple of days ago, pretty good, from the city attorney, pretty good ballot title, and should probably be able to start collecting signatures on that fairly soon, and we need about 34,000 valid signatures by July 6th.
Okay.
Of this year, in order to put it on the November ballot.
Right.
And I think if it goes on the ballot, it will probably win overwhelmingly. It's the same, almost the same electorate that passed the Multnomah County measure by 89%. In the city of Portland itself, that measure passed by 90%. So,
what would be the downside in terms of as far as now the candidates are running now? Okay, and I've gotten some calls along that line, in that some were saying, well, gee whiz, Bruce, it's going to take me 3 flyers, if you will, to run for city council. Okay.
3 flyers?
3 flyers.
Oh, flyers.
Flyers. I'm sorry, 3 flyers, and at the cost of about maybe $10,000 to $15,000 each. Okay, so that means now they're going to have to go out and pick up. Normally the normal way has been basically the corporation, like you were saying, they were doing 1,000, 2,000, 10,000, that type of stuff, and then they're trying to figure out, well, okay, fine, they can't do that anymore, and so now I've got to do it at $500 a shot.
Right.
You got me? And then sometimes there's game playing with that too, right? Like trying to find out maybe what can they go to one corporation. Let's say in the past we were giving somebody like 15,000. They can say, okay, fine, we'll just break it down and have individual whatever employees or whatever break it down to $500 each. Can they do that? Is there any way of preventing that?
There is nothing that prevents an individual from contributing $500.
Okay.
And so a corporation can certainly encourage its executives or employees to contribute. They cannot, under Oregon state law, provide any benefit or detriment to an employee who does or does not contribute. That's called the undue influence statute. So you can't say you have to contribute money to a political campaign or you're fired, or you also can't say if you contribute $500 to a political campaign, we'll give you a $500 bonus. That's already illegal under Oregon state law.
Okay.
What our city measure does, as this sort of chart indicates, that city elections tend to be a lot more expensive than county elections.
Right. Okay. Good. Okay, there we go.
Typically, mayors are now winning. Mayor candidates are spending $1 million or more. Charlie Hale spent about $1.5 million. Ted Wheeler about $1 million. And the county folks, the largest amount raised and spent was Deborah Kafori, about $466,000. So in our city measure, we allow a candidate to receive what we are conceiving as seed money. That is, the first $5,000 can be received without limits.
Okay.
Or which means that the candidate could, for example, loan herself the first $5,000 in order to get going. And so one of the first things that a candidate would do under the measures would be to start a grassroots fundraising operation in order to obtain contributions of $500 or less from folks. Note that in many states have limits that are lower than that, and the politicians in those states don't seem to have a problem in raising enough funds. You'll notice that in Montana, the limit for legislative races is only $170, Colorado $200, etc. And for many of these states, the limitations on amounts that can be contributed to local races are even less than can be contributed to legislators. So it's really only in a few states, as about 6 of them, where candidates become dependent upon gigantic contributions, as they do in Oregon. There is a little study was done by Osberg recently that concluded here that in Oregon races for candidates, that the candidate races are absolutely dominated by contributions of over $5,000 each. This chart shows in-state and out-of-state contributions. The out-of-state are orange, the in-state are blue. The left-hand large bar is large contributions in the 2016 election cycle, and the small bar is small contributions. And they draw that line as between over 5,000 and under 5,000. So you can see that in Oregon politics are absolutely dominated by contributions of over 5,000, and it's not unusual for individual candidates to receive contributions of over $300,000 from a single individual. The individuals making those contributions are usually timber company executives or executives of ADEC, which is a medical equipment supplier, medical equipment manufacturer down in Newburgh, or Nike. Of course, Nike has, Phil Knight contributed, what was it, $250,000 to the Kitzhaber campaign a few years back, and Kitzhaber then immediately called a special session of the Oregon legislature. For what purpose, you ask?
What purpose? What was that for?
For the Oregon legislature to adopt a law that says we are signing a contract, a binding contract with Nike, that we will not change the way we tax Nike for 30 years.
So they can meet that cap piece.
Well, so that Nike doesn't have. Well,
They have to worry about it.
Oregon corporate taxes are way out of whack. Oregon taxes Oregon corporations only on the basis of for income, only on the basis of their in-state sales, even if they are a worldwide corporation. It's totally out of line with the way other states tax corporations, corporate income. But Nike said, we want to have that special treatment, somehow embodied or somehow preserved for 30 years. But of course, one legislature can't bind what the next legislature does. This legislature can't say our tax system is going to be this way, this way for 20 or 30 years or whatever. But nevertheless, the Oregon legislature, authorized the state of Oregon to sign a contract with Nike, and so Nike can sue the state of Oregon if it changes its corporate tax system. So that's just that's just one illustration of what happens. But so seed money, you can fund the first 5,000 of your campaign, get your grassroots campaign up and running. With the internet, grassroots campaigns can be funded somewhat more easily than they were before. I mean, Bernie Sanders raised $250 million in contributions that he claimed averaged only $37 per contribution. It was somewhat more than that per contributor, because a large number of his contributors each contributed $1 on several occasions. So yes, that brings down the average. But we think that the limits of 500 per individual is a good limit. Most states have that limit. Washington, for example. One thing to note is that the mayoral races in Washington, Seattle, have far lower campaign expenditures than the mayoral races in Portland. By a factor of 3 or 4. And Seattle voters in 2015 adopted a law that lowered the limit from that, of course, only individuals can contribute in those races, and lowered that limit from $700 to $500. So Seattle has the same limit. And Seattle also adopted a campaign voucher system, where every registered voter in Seattle receives in the mail 4 vouchers. Each voucher is worth $25, and they can assign those vouchers either either in writing or electronically by going to a website, they can assign those vouchers to candidates for city council or candidates for mayor. So that system is in place. I think the first election that it's going to affect is probably this year. They did send out the vouchers in January a year ago. So that's a system of public funding. Of course, Oregon doesn't have that either. The Oregon legislature is considering right now a public funding of campaigns bill. It received a very favorable hearing a few days ago. It would establish a different kind of system of public funding of campaigns. It would only be for legislative campaigns. It would say that once you've collected, let's say you're running for the Oregon State Senate, once you've collected 400 small contributions from individuals, and small is defined as $250 or less per person, per contributor, or all of them have to be less than $250, that those contributions and subsequent small contributions would be matched by state funds on a 6-to-1 basis. That is, if you contributed, or I contributed $100 to your campaign for legislature, the state would kick in $600 on top of that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there would be a limit on that kind of match up to a pretty high level. That is a level that is determined by what it has cost in the what campaigns have cost in the past for those offices.
Okay.
So this sort of bill has been proposed in the Oregon legislature for each of the last 3 or 4 sessions.
Who's doing this? Which party? Oh, it's just kind of
Neither one.
yeah.
It's
whole
most
idea.
of the co-sponsors are Democrats, but of course the Democrats totally control the legislature,
Right.
and they haven't adopted it yet. The Progressive Party and the Independent Party, and I think the Green Party have endorsed the bill, but we'll see. It has to be voted out of committee within a week or so in this legislative session.
Now, I was just thinking about just another area would be like, for instance, like a flyer. Can a person and or a corporation can say, okay, fine, I'll fund the project as far as the flyers are concerned. Meaning that let's say that I'm just saying the cost or whatever might have been $15,000. They can't do that, right? Basically, probably have to do the net, what the cost might be in terms of what the material cost or whatever it costs.
Right. Under this measure,
this measure here,
a corporation could not contribute $15,000 for a flyer.
Right.
And could not also produce the flyer itself.
Okay.
Which would be an in-kind contribution to $15,000.
Right. In-kind. Okay.
Right.
So there's no in-kind stuff in this bill.
Under state law, in-kind contributions are considered the same as cash contributions.
Yeah. Right.
So right.
So any contribution that they might have made would be, like you said, would still be that $500 cap would have to be a part of the process.
Right, $500 per individual or $500 per political committee. And let me also mention the important provision in the Multnomah measure and in the proposed Portland measure, and that's small donor committees.
Small donors.
Small donor committee is a political committee that cannot accept contributions from any place except from individuals in amounts limited to $100 per individual per calendar year.
Per calendar year.
Calendar year. And such small donor committees can then, aggregate the small contributions, and then they can spend them any way they want. They can contribute all that money to one candidate. They can take out their own ads as long as the ads identify them, or they can contribute the funds to a number of candidates. And that's another way for candidates to raise money, but in small amounts. So if there are civic-minded organizations and entities, or persons, they can form small donor committees, receive small contributions, and fund the campaigns that way.
Now, getting back to Multnomah County, as far as the law, now is the law in place now, as far as enforcement?
Yes, it is.
The candidates can only, as far as the campaign rate, the $500 cap is in place right now.
Yes, it is, and Of course, your guest from last week, Seth Woolley, is diligently checking the
Yes.
campaign finance reports
Yes,
to make
right.
sure that no one is violating
Yes.
the $500 limits. And he has found a couple of violations of candidates from Multnomah County office who accepted contributions of more than $500 per individual, or accepted contributions from a corporation,
Okay.
which are not allowed. But each of those candidates, within a day or so, recognized that contribution was in violation of the new charter
right.
amendment, and so they returned the money to the donors.
Okay. Yeah, I think he mentioned that in regards to Deborah Kafori. I think
Deborah
initially.
Kafori had one of those where
She had
she was
$1,000 or something. Man.
$1,000 contribution. She immediately returned half of that.
Half the money. So
Down to
she cashed the
500.
check and then give it
I
back.
don't, well, she reported the contribution having been received. I don't know if that means she cashed the check, and then
Maybe
and then
Seth will know.
reported sending back 500.
Okay,
That's right.
okay. Well, what other little things that, because like some of the folks are saying, well, gee whiz, how am I going to be running a race? I just can't get the small folks to contribute the monies to me, the $500 or something like that.
Well, consider the situation now.
I'm just asking these kind of.
Consider the situation now. If let's say you want to run for Portland City Council.
Right.
One problem with that is that all of the members of the City Council are elected citywide,
Right.
which makes it
Very different.
4 times more expensive
Exactly.
than if they were elected by district. So that's
Exactly.
the first problem. So you need to send out your brochures to 4 times as many people.
Right.
The next problem is that you're going to have an opponent who is funded by the corporations. One very large source of contributions now for local politicians are corporations that are involved in the Portland Harbor Superfund site. There is a large proceeding going on at the Environmental Protection Agency and federal courts about who should pay for the cleanup of toxic wastes that are up and down the Willamette River and in the Portland Harbor area that were deposited there by industry over the past several decades. And it's several $1 billion are at stake there. And many of the industries want the city of Portland to pay that, to tax us, the taxpayers, to pay for cleanup of the mess that they left. So that's now a large source of contributions. So let's say you're running for city council. You're right now you're going to face a candidate who's automatically got $500,000 to $1 million in his pocket from the corporations. Now, do you think you can beat that?
Oh, no way.
So wouldn't you rather compete with that candidate in order to obtain small contributions and run on that basis? I would.
Oh yes, very much so. I can see it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other thing that you think we might want to share with those potential folks who are interested in running for office, and the again the beneficiary area to the public as a whole, and to the issues that say of concern. The idea we definitely want to get the folks at the table that's going to respond to the issues as far as concerns and solutions. Right? Fair. Right?
Yeah. One thing,
Go on.
Oregon's campaign finance Wild West system really belies Oregon's reputation as a progressive state. That's really a myth. Oregon is not a progressive state. It's not even progressive when it comes to environmental protection, which is seems to be Oregon's calling card. My goodness, we have open beaches and all sorts of wonderful things like that. But in fact, we have very terrible environmental policies. And this slide just indicates one example. I have a whole series of them, but just a local example is that probably not many people know. This is, of course, what Donald Trump always says. Not many people know this.
Okay.
Not many people know that healthcare is very complicated. Not many people know that Multnomah County Air is now ranked in the worst 1% of all counties nationwide for contributions of diesel particulate. And it's in the worst 2% for cancer risks from air pollution. Portland is the worst city nationwide in respiratory distress. This was from the EPA National Air Toxics Assessment from about 2 years ago. How can that be? Well, the corporations are the ones who are putting out the pollution are also the ones that are controlling the legislature and local government. Diesel. Oregon is an extremely bad state when it comes to controlling diesel emissions. California and Washington have both banned dirty diesel engines, those that were built before the year 2008. can't use them. So companies with those diesel engines, trucks and stationary diesel engines in Washington, sell their polluting diesel engines into Oregon. Oregon lets them run. So, Oregon is an outlier now on the West Coast when it comes to environmental issues. Oregon is the weak link, and I think it's because of the campaign finance system. Oregon is like the non-existent link when it comes to campaign finance regulation. California and Washington both have limits on contributions. They both require that political ads identify their top donors. I was listening to a political ad the other day in Washington that said, this ad was paid for by Bill Gates. So Oregon's way behind, and we need to, and the only way to bring Oregon back to some level of democracy is through ballot measures, and so that's what the Progressive Party is doing, the Green Party is doing, the Independent Party is doing, and we hope that people will join the campaign. We'll find a we can't find go to honest-elections.com.
Okay.
honest-elections.com, and you'll find all of the information.
All the information on the picture, we just got to discuss.
That's right.
Okay, good. That sounds good. But again, one more thing for clarity. The point is that the law was passed for the Multnomah County, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. And this so-called legal deal, is that a repeal process aspect of it?
Oh, there is
What about the implementation?
There is a validation proceeding in court
validation, which
underway.
Which means
any county can ask the circuit court to validate a statute, and that means that the court decides whether it's valid or not under the Oregon Constitution. So that proceeding began last summer. All the briefing was done last summer, and it has been at the Multnomah County Circuit Court since then. We sort of expected a decision by September, but that hasn't happened yet.
Okay.
So once the Multnomah County Circuit Court decides the matter, whoever loses there can appeal that to the Oregon Court of Appeals, and the loser there can ask for review in the Oregon Supreme Court. In the meantime, the measure is fully in effect.
It's in effect.
In effect.
Okay, $500 cap, right?
Yep.
And then you got the small donors, right?
And small donor committees.
And the $5,000 for the person who's running for office, right?
Not for Multnomah County.
Not for Multnomah County yet. What options do you give them to a certain degree?
In Multnomah County, you can receive contributions from individuals of $500 or less, or you can receive contributions from small donor committees.
And was that $100 and some bucks? What was that?
And the small donor committee can accept contributions from individuals of $100 per year.
And that's basically putting it together. It has to be a legal committee, right?
It has to be a political committee under Oregon law.
Under Oregon law, and then you go through the Secretary of State's office with that, I take it, right?
That's right.
Or is it right? That way?
Secretary of State.
Good. Okay, and the minimum number of the committee? The minimum number of folks in that committee? How many?
1.
1, 2, 3, 5, 10? I'm just thinking about the committee. You were thinking about the small donor committee.
I'm not understanding your question.
Okay, I'm just saying, trying to raise the money as opposed to the $500. You can get small donor committees, right?
Right.
Okay, at 100, what's it, 100, 150?
$100 per person per year.
Per person.
Right.
What's the composition of that committee? How many people?
The committee can be as many people as it wants.
Okay.
1,
okay.
2, 3,
I'm just trying to get some little clarification with that.
Right.
Okay. Good. Well, hey, that sounds good. I think you've answered a number of questions. In fact, Bruce is sitting out there. And any questions, Bruce? You got anything? Any idea? Did you get the message? Well, did you or didn't you?
Yeah, I'm not taking any money from corporations. It's all individuals.
Okay. Set, anything that you want to? You okay? Good. Okay, so I think we covered it quite a bit. What do you think? So far, so good.
Yeah.
And so we're planning on maybe taking this throughout the state of Oregon. I take it, right? We're starting right here in the Portland metropolitan area.
Yes, Portland seems to be receptive, so we're trying to get the Portland measure on the ballot for this November, and probably because of the opposition and the interference in the initiative process by the former executive director of the Democratic Party of Oregon. We may well not be able to do a statewide measure until the year 2020.
2020?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's quite a bit away. Interesting. Oh, one question I didn't ask you: what about repercussions if they violate this law? Let's say if Deborah didn't. What about that situation? What happens then?
Violations of the limits are punishable by fines. I believe it's not less than 2 times or more than 20 times the amount of the violation. So if you accept a contribution of $1,000, then the fine could be anywhere from $2,000 to $20,000. One question is how that gets enforced.
Right.
We have proposed to the Multnomah County Commission that they adopt an enforcement ordinance, which they have not done. So now the only process for enforcement is for an individual to file a complaint with the Multnomah County Election Office or with the county attorney, and there's no established process for handling the complaint.
That's another process we have to go through.
If the complaint is denied, then the complainer can go to Multnomah County Circuit Court and basically make an evidentiary showing there. So it's not bad. That's not a bad system. I think it would be better to have more clarity, however.
Okay, good. Well, besides going to the internet on your piece, who else can they go at the county and get information on background, as far as background on this issue?
Who can they go to at the county? That's
Who can they go to? Do they go to an attorney, or do they maybe go to the chair, or what? Who can they go to say, okay, fine, look here, I've got a question?
Oh, if you have a question about it, then contact the county attorney.
The county attorney?
Right.
Okay, county attorney, just to make sure that it's cleaned up.
Yes.
Okay, good. I take it we've got about 24 seconds here right now. Am I right? That's right. I guess that's it. Okay, fine. Well, Dan, this has been great. A lot of good information. I think it's very important because that needs to have been discussed, trust me. Because a lot of folks, we got, March 6th coming up. That's when the door closed. So those folks who potentially might want to be candidates, they need to know what this law is all about.
Right.
Yeah?
March 6th is the deadline for filing for
Sounds
candidacy.
great. Thanks very much, Dan.
All right.
It's a pleasure. Always a pleasure. Okay.
Same here.
Okay, folks. Well,
We're back.
We're back.
Right.
Rich, go on. You give Rich a shout out here. Rich is running this piece here. If you can. There we go, Rich. Good. There we go. Go on, Rich. What'd you think?
I know one thing. I'm warmer.
You warming up right now? Okay.
See, a lot of people, they don't think about lights that are here. It used to be they were hot, warm lights. Then they made another step into just like neon lights or something, and it was kind of in between. But now these LEDs don't have any heat. So if you don't...
you freeze it there. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, you can... You can get cold.
You get cold. Okay.
In the old days, like I said, some people sweat
Right.
under those lights.
Right. But not now.
That's right.
They freeze.
No, that's right.
Okay.
You get cold.
You get cold.
Of course, it's cold outside right
Yes,
now,
yes,
40
yes,
degrees
yes,
or something
right,
like that.
Well, what do you think about this piece we just saw?
Oh,
wasn't that interesting?
See, I mean, he's amazing,
Yeah.
and he has been available
Dan. Yeah.
on
Dan Meek.
for cable access people.
Yes, yes.
I don't know where he's on. I've never seen him on Channel 2 or 6 or 8. I never seen that. But he has been available on more than one cable access show, and so he is just great. So you must have gone out after him.
Yeah. Well, I've been knowing him for a number of years.
Yeah,
you
oh,
know,
I'm sure,
a
because
number
he'd
of
come
years.
and go
And
right here.
And then the importance of this is that this is like, it's like the people's TV, community television aspect of it.
Right.
And a lot of times this has a lot of impact to the little people, and it's so important to educate them about what is on the table, and at the same time giving the corporate community the opportunity to see that there is an issue. And there's an issue among those individuals who are part of the process for their survivorship too. See, so the name of the game is that now. Hopefully, I've invited, in all due respect, I've invited a couple of the lobbyists from the corporate community
Yeah.
to come and sit down and talk to the rationale as to why they might be opposed to it, or whether or not they're saying this is why we're saying, hey, we're just about balance or whatever. You know what I mean? But my point, give everybody the opportunity to understand. But the deal is that solving those issues, if you will. As you notice, they talked about environmental issues and air and clean air and
Yeah,
this kind of
right.
That's
And
a
we're
very
the
serious
worst,
issue. And
right?
we're the worst in the country. The worst in the country. And we're constantly talking about how great our state is, the good clean air is.
Well, that's right. We try to think we're perfect.
Yes, but those diesel molecules are all over the place, right? the way is being laid out.
Right.
So my point. So it's very important to have this kind of a medium, if you will, to be able to talk to those issues. And I thought that was good. I thought that was really good. So Multnomah County is on the top of this piece right now. They're starting with Multnomah County, and you don't know where that's going to expand, but you can rest assured that if in fact it's going to impact someone else's turf, if you will, they're going to come up with a better fix, a better widget or whatever, something.
Right.
And say, okay, fine, so we can stay, so everybody can stay in business, right? You got me?
Okay.
But it is an issue right now with reference to the clean air issue and all this other stuff, and we need to deal and respond to that piece. So that was a good example of again, it's impacting the campaigns.
Yeah.
And it's impacting it in various ways. One's going to have to be a little bit more creative.
Well, it's true. The diesel, there must be some real lobbyists there
Yes,
from the
right.
diesel people. And I know it's difficult, but
Oh,
just you have to keep trying,
Yep,
step at a time, to cut down
Yep.
on that particulate that gets inside
Yep,
here,
yep.
and it's a problem.
yeah. But like I said, in most cases, like if it doesn't affect me, i.e., if it's a corporate name, if it doesn't affect me, the heck with it. You got me? If I don't live here, the heck with it. If I'm not around diesel, the heck with it, right? And if I can control that magic wand, I mean, that's what I'm going to do. You know.
Okay.
I mean, I've been. So I'm just saying. He mentioned Nike. Remember, he mentioned Nike about.
Yes, he did.
He mentioned Nike, and Phil Knight has always been an icon in the state of Oregon.
Oh,
He's
yeah,
been here,
right.
and he grew up here, the whole 9 yard, and it was kind of interesting in terms of how he responded, i.e. to the state doing one thing, and then the states, and then at the same time going to the state and using his influence and say, okay, fine, well, give us a 30-year contract, and we'll still maintain the same tax rate for the next 30 years or whatever, something like that. See, you got
Okay.
me? But hey, it's give and take. But I'd like to be at that table when I'm sitting up there. If I had access to it, I would have talked to him about it, and maybe he can get a better feel, and maybe he can talk about how many more jobs he's going to bring to the state. I wouldn't just
Okay.
give him just a direct contract. I said, okay, fine, but how many more jobs are you going to be hiring? How many more hires you're going to have over the state? And he contributes. He does contribute. They do contribute monies to the education system aspect of it, and sports and this, that, and the other. Well, are you going to be doing more of that, if you will? Or are you going to do refurbishing? So my point is that you can sit down and all of a sudden balance it off with some of the other things that maybe he's doing. Because I know that, for instance, we know that there's an effort right now to try to get business back here, blue-collar work, back to this country, if you will, for jobs.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Right,
really,
right.
when you start thinking about homelessness, that could probably solve the 50, 75% of that overnight, if you will, if those jobs were being made to come back here, whether it be making tennis shoes or whether it be T-shirts or caps and whatever. You got my point?
Right.
Because I've got one on right now. Let's see, it was made where? Okay, this is made in the USA.
Oh,
See what I mean? So that's a good deal. See?
I think they did that deliberately.
Isn't that something? I mean, that was good. Well, I don't buy them unless they do have a USA sticker in the deal. But all the rest of them, in all due respect, they've either been made in China, right?
Right. I think we're there. We're gonna had some very good. Meek was
Yes.
a very good.
Yes.
And,
yes.
We're just about through, and we want to thank our crew for
Yes.
doing
Oh, yes, very much so.
making
Corey was
this
just
show
great.
possible.
He's learned well under my tutelage. It was great. Fantastic. I think he'll like that. But no, he's a great guy. He's really very, very straight up guy, and he does an excellent job. And boy, I tell you, I couldn't exist without him. You know what I'm saying? You got me?
Right.
And in fact, I can't exist with the entire crew of our cable network and our program that we have here. Okay? Sounds good.
Okay.
Open signal, right? Now we're open signal. So
Yeah, we're
signal is
open
an asset.
signal.
That's good. Good enough. All right. Well, with that, check me out on my show next week. I'm going to have probably an interesting guest again. you never know. I might have the corporate community come on and
Right,
whatever to talk about this issue. Or,
Well, I don't
Maybe-
know if we're
maybe-
still on now or not.
oh, another guest. We might have another guest, if you will. I might have another guest on that issue aspect of it, and that might be another way of doing it. So that's where we're going to be, buddy. So we're gonna really get out for those candidates. Please come one, come all. You can do me at the Oregon Voters Digest. Give me a call. Just come down, stick your head in. We'll get you in. And I know Corey understands that. We did that last week. But it's this community television, and it works real well. So thank you very much. Have a good one. And vote.